Hello. All right, as you all heard, this meeting is being recorded. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. We already heard that Matthew will be unable to make it this evening. I'm not sure about Robert, but we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, so the budget document that I sent in the packet has a couple of minor changes based on the discussion at the council meeting in October. One of them being the $40,000 for the pool support is included in that budget. The school district is going to be discussing different methodologies as far as how much money they need and how the contract looks, what the contract looks like for various options to take into consideration whether or not the Metro Park District passes and whether or not the pool is open. And so in the budget right now is if the pool is open for the entire year of 2021, and that would be $40,000. If the pool is in soft close, I mentioned that it'd be $20,000. And I mentioned to them that if in a contract, one thing that we would discuss would be doing a rate for a monthly rate for if it's in soft close versus fully opened. And so their meeting won't take place until next week. And so they won't have an answer for us or a contract possibly until December. But in the budget, it reflects a full $40,000 for the pool. The other change is just a slight increase of the sheriff's contract to what the actual costs are based on the negotiated rate, and that will also be on the agenda for council approval next week. And then the tourism funding contract amounts include just all the committee approved amounts, and that is also on the agenda for next week. Other than that, everything that's in the details of the budget remain the same. And so are there questions or places that you want me to start off on?
Okay, so Liana, like we've discussed, one of the things that I find most useful about these workshops, and I'm looking for it in your packet, is the pie chart that has, oh, here we go, revenue and expenses. So that looks like page 18 and 19. That sound right?
Okay. So the proposed revenues, the Taxes, 29% of our revenue comes from taxes, and there's multiple tax funding streams. Sales tax, property tax are the two biggest ones. We also get some minor leasehold taxes, and then we also get some various the PUD taxes, so utility taxes for PUD, telephone, and garbage. And that tax rate currently, I believe, is at 3%. And there's a max rate of 6% for taxes imposed on other utilities. You can raise it higher than that, but it has to be by a vote of the people. We do not currently have a tax on our internal utilities, which would be councilmanic. Some cities do, some cities don't. It's a way to fund the general fund if you don't have other revenue streams. The city has not seen the need to do that at this time. Charges for services. So the proposed revenue for 2021 includes, this is all of the funds. And so that those charges for services include your revenues for your water sewer funds. So those are your utility fees. Intergovernmental grants, those typically are grants that we get through the Transportation Improvement Board. This one, due to the size, is probably related also to the Community Development Block Grant and other, what they call more or less minor grants. I think Ben has a grant for the Shoreline Master Program, Management Program, and that is, I think, $11,000. And so those costs will then be reflected also in the expense side. More than likely, they're under capital costs, so they wouldn't be reflected in the operating pie chart. But it looks substantial, but it typically does not cover O&M costs. Other financing sources, that 10% is related to loans that we get. That's a large portion of that. So that would be our Department of Ecology loan that we have for the design of the wastewater treatment plant, as well as that's 2021. License and permits, we are no longer doing building permitting, so that's why it dropped down pretty much to 0%. Business licenses, we might get a couple $1,000s, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a very large impact to the city's overall revenue. Same, so you have the capital contributions, which is 2%. Up at the top there, and that would be the SDC charges that we receive for water and sewer. Again, I budget those conservatively, not knowing how growth is going to happen. And so, but those also then are set aside for our reserves. So they're, again, not used in our O&M costs. Same for investment income and fines and penalties. They're minimal in the overall scheme of things. And the intergovernmental state shared revenues, those are funds that we receive through, so it's our marijuana remittance. So there is some liquor taxes, and then we also get some other, they call it state shared revenues from the Liquor Control Board. There's also some criminal justice funds that come through that fund, and some of those funds are then all passed along to the Sheriff's Department as well, because they're for those services, or for a specific type of service that the Sheriff's Office provides for us. And so that's sort of a overall view of where our revenue comes from. There's more detail in the budget suggestion document that was also included on where those state shared revenues come from, as well as where their projections are for this year. And then I believe they go a year or two out as well. And that is also determined by the legislature. So one thing that Association of Washington Cities typically fights hard for every year is to ensure that we maintain our state shared revenues, because in times of budget need, those are the first things that tend to go away from the state. They try to keep them all to balance their own budget rather than share them. So again, that'll probably be up for discussion and a challenge this year due to the challenging budget times we're in. Moving on to expenses, as you see, most of our services or personnel services, we contract out for our sheriff's department. We also use professional. So a lot of this can also be for when we do the design stuff for our capital project, that is also classified as a service. Let me see. We also have and again, this is citywide. And so it's hard to figure out just based on that picture where all the service costs are going to. A lot of it also goes to tourism, the tourism fund. They have all of those services for hosting of events, running the chamber, the SDA. Those are all classified as services. For water and wastewater, we have a lot of services such as the sludge hauling costs. Those are defined as services. When we send samples out to get tested, the lab services are fees that we incur. And so a bulk of those are through water and water and sewer costs for either engineering, hauling, running the treatment plant, or running tests for us. And I think that's it as far as the revenues and the expenses overall go. One thing for for taxes, I wanted to share. I don't know how many people recently received any of their assessment notices for taxes. But I just want to let you know, so for 2020, I don't have the 2021 distribution yet because everyone is setting it now. But for 2020, this is the property tax distribution. And so as you see, the city of the taxes that everyone pays, the city collects 19% of that. A majority of your taxes go to the schools. And then you have the county is the next biggest one. And then you have the hospital, library, PUD, port, EMS, and cemetery district. And that is for residents inside city limits. And that will probably change slightly next year with the school levy passing. But are there any other questions?
So when I look at the chart of revenue, it shows that 39% of our revenue is for services, but 59% is expenditures. How does that work? Okay,
say that one more time.
So on your revenue chart, it shows that there's a 39% revenue. 39% of our revenue is from services.
Yes.
But of our expenses, 59% go to services. So am I just, the numbers just are different? Or
the name services is different. So this is charges for the city services for revenue. It's money we collect for providing water and sewer, or providing no, that'd be under permits. So I was thinking land use, but that's under permits. So charges for services is providing water and sewer. The services from an expense standpoint are when we contract others to provide a service for the city. And so that could, like I said, so that's our law enforcement. That's our prosecuting services. That's our codification services. Those are all within the general fund. And so that wouldn't be in the 39% of the revenue because those charges for services are, again, all for water sewer. So they don't correlate. If you want to look at the direct correlation, you would want to look at further down on a fund by fund basis. You'll see, I have it expenses by department for the general fund, but for the, let's see, for the water sewer fund, the 55% of the sewer expenses are related to sewer services, and then 33% of the water expenses are related to services, where a large portion of the revenue is for the service that's provided. And so that would be on page 51.
So the reason that I look at those pie charts is, it's just a basic business principle. Money coming in needs to be more than money going out, or you start to lose money. If you want to start saving money, then obviously money coming in needs to be greater than money going out. So it just want that, just on a real raw level, being able to look at those pie charts and just get a grasp on how we bring money in and how the money goes out, so that when you start, so you don't get too mired in the minutia. I want you to be able to start at the top and look at how we bring in money and how we spend our money. So it's then you ideally can really start to hone in on how we can make better use of our money.
Hey, Scott, can I ask Leanna?
Go for it.
Now that
Hey, so by the way, this is a workshop. So just so long as we're not stomping all over each other, it's very important. And especially I'm glad, Annie, that we had a chance to get you in today too, and of course, a couple of you have been here a lot, but feel free to chime in at any time. The idea is to get a really good grip on the budget, so that when we talk about the budget, there's not a lot of I'm afraid to raise my hand because I really don't understand. So this is the part where we get past the I don't understand.
So now that I figured out how to work my Zoom today, because it wasn't letting me in on video for whatever reason, Leanna, am I literally seeing a $500,000 loss in revenue between 19 and 20? I'm looking at page 26.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm like, okay.
I'm just looking at the general fund. I'm under your 2020 appropriated. So you're estimating 2.1 million. And we were at 2.6 in 19.
Yes. So that's what's currently budgeted.
So we're looking at a $500,000 shortfall?
Not.
I mean, again, that's 30,000 foot. I haven't dug into the minutia to find it, but I'm just like, that's my first.
No, I get it. So this is where, so that also includes the reserves. So it includes your beginning cash balances.
Right.
And one of the reasons why it's lower is because I moved $420,000 to reserves. So I moved it out of the general fund and I put it into specific reserves. And so it's not reflected in that balance.
So
So-
that's why I go to page 25 and I look at line 330, right? Your revenues, your intergovernmental revenues, and that's that 425 that you took out of 2020.
Can you share your screen so I know what
Oh,
you're talking about?
geez.
If not,
And you know, it took me forever to figure out why it wasn't letting me in video wise.
Here.
Yeah, no, my skill set on Zoom today is apparently really bad. But I'm on line 20. I'm on page 25,
okay.
and it is your grouping 330, which is two-thirds,
Grants.
three-thirds, or two.
This
Three quarters
330
of
for me
it, yeah.
says grants.
No, it's intergovernmental revenues. And you've got-
Okay, no, so it's not that, it's
Oh, I see it.
on the page before that,
Okay.
grouping 308 beginning balances.
Okay, I see it. And then you've got, well, I mean, 764, 760.
And then if you look at the line before that, it says 202 fire department.
Okay, yeah, I got that.
And so in 2017 and 2018, 2019, you have money. And then in 2020, you have nothing
Under the fire truck, right?
under the fire department. Right. So that was moved to a separate fund. And so there's 420,000 of that $500,000 difference.
Okay, I'm tracking you now.
Okay,
'Cause
so-
that's showing that, I mean, that shows me going from 1.4 million to 764,000. So
Right. Yes.
that's a bigger drop than.
But it didn't go away. It just went out of the general fund and it's in the fire reserve.
That I understand.
So, okay.
Where's the other, is the other one just a loss then that we're showing? Or did you move that as well so that I don't go, oh my God?
So, and that's what I'm looking for. Oh, so 80,000 in revenue. Again, it corresponds typically to the expense though. But it's reflected in the revenue. $80,000, we received a grant for through Department of Ecology for purchasing the truck, the command vehicle for the fire department.
Right.
And so we don't have that $80,000 of revenue now. So that's another decrease, but it's not an O&M cost decrease. It's a capital cost decrease that was a reimbursement.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm looking at it, we lost 115,000 in sales tax.
That's what I project. Although I think right now,
Do you project it as a winner? I mean, we're gonna carry Georgia, we're not gonna carry Georgia?
Right. I believe we'll be beating the $200,000.
Yeah.
But I don't know by how much. But yes, I mean, it will probably be $100,000 down in sales tax.
And I guess my question on that though is just the sales tax though, that is money that comes back to us, right? We don't collect that on the front end. That comes back to us from Olympia.
Right. And it takes about 2 months for us to get.
Okay. So I guess question for all of us, do we need to worry that sales tax is down due to COVID? Because I assume you're getting this money. When do you get it, quarterly or monthly from?
We get it monthly. We get it at the end of the month. Mhm.
So clearly we're projected not to have earned about 110,000 in sales tax revenue this year. Which I guess if you don't have people coming into town and buying stuff, then they're going to send us back our percentage of that 0.77, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
So
Oh.
Liana, Tom Lannon was pointing out at one point that there was an interesting spike in sales tax due to Amazon sales. So if someone purchases something from Amazon in city limits, do we get some of that, or is that a county reimburse or a county tax that they get
The city receives it.
if using a city address?
Right.
Okay.
But-
And any online sales, the
And
city
that's
receives.
well, that's on litigation right now. They're
Well,
playing catch up.
yeah,
on all
that's-
of that.
Is that the
So,
Wayfair case or?
yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So it's the same thing with, Verbo or Airbnb, Picasa. They're supposed to charge that sales tax and then give it back to us. But
Mhm.
Expedia, I mean, they all had their own problems. But so that to me was a huge drop, just sales tax. And again, as stewards of the city's money. We just may have to realize that we're not going to get that maybe even until the middle of 2021 if we get back to some set of normal. Because what percentage of the excise tax do we get when there's real property sales?
I think it's 1/4%.
Quarter, is that reflected in our sales tax revenue or
No, so that goes into our CIP. So it's a
where is
separate
that?
fund. So that's on. Let's see if I have my bookmarks.
And I'm not trying to hijack this. I just had these were things that jumped out at me today when I was reading.
So that's on page 43.
43. Oh, it's not even in the general fund? That money doesn't go in the general fund?
No, it's a specific, it has to go to a specific fund. It has to go to your capital improvement fund, and it can only be used for capital improvement projects that are outlined in your comp plan.
Interesting. All right. Well, we need the lodge to sell again because that was the big fun time.
Right, that was nice.
Yeah.
So Liana, proposed, this is you doing your modeling and your forecasting. This is you giving it your best guess. So now, what do you use? Do you have models that you look at, or is this just your gut feeling and you just lean towards the conservative side?
Combination of all of that. So for sales tax, I try to look at how it has been trending, and then especially with COVID, you know, how things have been going since everything shut down, and then how it's coming back. And then I kind of did a projection based off of that, and then I did a conservative sort of cutback. So that's why it's $230,000. So it's just a little bit better than this year, and that's assuming that the lodge doesn't shut down again. So it's assuming that there's not going to be a big shutdown that happened in March through May, more or less. But again, and all cities actually have been saying that their sales tax has been doing better than they initially projected at the hit of COVID. So again, people are still spending money in town or buying things online. It's not a complete stop of everything. However, we don't know what the future is going to bring as far as an economic forecast is concerned. You know, everyone talks about the check mark or the Nike swoosh as far as a recovery goes. That's anyone's guess.
Yeah, they just laid off a bunch of senior execs.
Right. Yeah. So.
Well, and that's the other part too, that I'm not, you know, the ways that you start to see this kind of pan out. There's a business that Radcom supports that found it made a lot more sense to keep their employees at home, especially if their kids had to stay home to do at-home schooling. So this was a benefit that the employer provided. Yes, by all means, it's possible for you to work at home. Please work at home. Please be there for your kids. So that's the benefit that they extended, and then realized that they were spending money for an office that they had no intention of using. So now that building, that office space is going to go vacant. So now that property owner doesn't have that income. So there's going to be these weird tracers of shortcomings as we start to plod through this. So, you know, maybe some of these issues will start to correct, but I think that there's going to be some lingering issues that none of us really, yes, when you look back at it, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Of course. Great benefit. Thank you, boss, for letting me stay at home. But by the way, landlord, you need to find another tenant. And who's that tenant going to be at this time?
Well, you obviously didn't read today's news. Deutsche Bank is proposing to the feds that they start taxing us for working at home. So we're going to get a work at home tax that Deutsche Bank somehow can get through the. But go back to this. So I'm again on page 25. And I'm just trying to drill in now to the minutia of some of our revenue streams. Building permits, you're showing negative now. How do we get negative on building permits?
So building permits, part of the reason for the negative is there were a couple of permits that were in process that they paid for last year.
Okay.
And they needed to be reissued because there was something that took place where they just needed to start over. And
Right.
so, and we hadn't done anything with it. And so what we had to do though, is because it would now be reviewed at the county, the city refunded the building the building fees, and then it's charged at the county and the city doesn't see it. So that's what the reason is for that those negative funds.
Are you telling me with the city's no longer collecting building permit fees?
Right, they're all collected at the county, but we're also not paying for the building permit.
Not paying for the
Or sorry, we're not paying for the inspection services.
Understood. So is the county distributing any of that money to us, or does that, so if you build a house within the city limits, then those fees go to the county, not to the
Yep.
city?
Mm-hmm. So the building inspection fees, yes. We still collect the fees for the water and the sewer system development charges and inspections.
Okay, so are we no longer reviewing plans, Ben?
We're charging the $35 for the planning portion.
$35 for Ben to review a set of house plans? Damn, that's the cheapest deal.
There's still the plans examiner that the building official does.
But
So
that's a county fee?
that's the county fee. So that's about half of the total building permit fee. And that's to review those plans to make sure that what's being proposed is going to comply with the building codes.
Okay, I follow that, but I'm like, so the new development down there on Rock Creek, we didn't get permit fees from that?
We did for the shorelines permit fee, the plat amendment fee. So there were several fees that they paid, and then there was the pass-through fees for engineering reviews. So
But no building permit fees.
building permit fee goes to the county, right?
Did that happen this year? Did I go blank somewhere? What happened? How did that revenue stream go away?
When we approved the contract with the county at the beginning of the year for building department, building services.
Okay. I did not pay attention to that. Sorry.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I have
That
a
was 50 grand. That was 60 grand last year.
I have a question for Ben and Liana because of your grant experience. So I'm looking on page 23, the 2021 proposed revenues. There's a 36% slice for grants and other sources. Are those grants that have already been awarded and just haven't been spent yet? And what is what's the word on the street, so to speak, as to grant awards for 2021? Are we still going to see grant opportunities with the dwindling economy?
So the grants, a large portion of that consists of the community development block grant.
Okay.
And so that's something that was awarded a couple of years ago. And so that's just an ongoing drawdown as applicants apply. And there are a couple of applications in process right now, and that's for Klickitat and Skamania County. And so I have $250,000 estimated as the rollover. Another grant is, like I said, the $11,000 for the Shoreline Master Plan grant. And that's again, so these are secured grants that we have.
Good.
And that's when I put it in the budget. Unless there's something that I'm fairly certain of, that I'll put in the budget. But for the most part, I don't put grants in there until they're secured.
Okay, good.
And right now, I know as far as grants go for next year, the Transportation Improvement Board, their grant is their grant package. They cut out a lot of services. I think they're $40 million less than what they're typically able to provide. Because not only, so it's a combination of they were waiting on the final results from the I-976 appeal. And then just people aren't traveling, so they're not buying gas and no more. Then so there's just a reduction of fuel taxes.
Right.
And some of that, Annie, because of the state's biennial budget cycle, they won't know. So the funds are already allocated for the grant programs right now, but it'll be the next cycles where the legislature might allocate less funds to different programs.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if you had heard any inside, sources from inside sources what 2021 is going to look like for grant awards available. Yeah, thank you.
I've got a question relating to the pool again. Could you remind me what is the timing on the formation of the Parks District and the $40,000 that we're setting aside, and how is that committed if the Parks District passes?
So that will be confirmed in the drafting of the contract. So because the school district did say that if the pool if the park district doesn't pass, then they're going to basically permanently reconfigure what the pool is, and there will no longer be a pool. So it's going to be on the ballot in February. I think it's February 9th. It'll be a special election. And the outcome of that will then determine whether or not there's a pool. Within the contract, I will make sure that there's a stipulation of, if the pool district passes, this is one route, and if the pool district does not pass, here's the other route. The implication that I got from the last discussion that we had was that the $40,000 was going to be for this year, and then to help the district until it got its funds in April of 2022, which is when it would start collecting some of the taxes for operations. And so again, that would be up for council discussion as far as how much you wanted to support it in 2022. But once that district is established, no additional funds will be provided to the district, because it's already being collected by the district versus, in essence, the city residents paying twice for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we addressed that because of Rob's letter. So
Mhm.
Thanks.
Amy, to touch base with you then, just sort of again at the micro level here, if the lodging tax is going to get really beat up, what are you guys looking at the TAC in terms of awards to, what we usually support, or the TAC, and then we rubber stamp.
Yeah,
you
that's in here. I don't know what page it's on, but the TAC committee did meet, and those awards have been made, and it was quite a significant drop in total dollar amount. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Do you know which page that is, just so I could look at it?
One second. I wanted to go back and address the revenue that we received for building permits.
Okay.
So we received $59,000 in 2019 and $65,000 in 2018. But if you go down to the cost of the department, which is the total cost, I think it's down on page 30, 29 or 30, I can't. It's kind of in between. The total cost of the department in 2019 was $92,000.
So we were upside down, yeah.
Upside down, yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, that's what I looked at next. I was just
Yeah.
wondering if we lose an income, or
Yeah.
did we save money by going the other way? It
Yeah.
looks like we did. So.
Yeah. So the tourism fund is on page 39.
Thank you.
And I might be off by one based on what everyone else is saying. So
I got the street fund.
so maybe 40.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Well, I guess, so Amy, did you guys already meet for allocation for next year?
We did. Yeah. And I actually was not at that meeting, and I have a question about that as well. Liana, my question was about the fireworks designation.
Mhm.
That is the same amount that we've given in years past, but previously it was under the chamber, and now it's in its own fund. Is that right?
So it's $1,000 more than what we've given in the past,
Okay.
because the cost of fireworks is going up.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's not tied to the previous conversation that we had about, okay. Thank you.
Amy, I know you just said you weren't at the meeting, but do you know, like, are the Outrigger guys going to come? Did they cancel for 2021 or?
Yeah, they're planning on having that. It's just rollover from last year.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And there were a couple of other events, I think, the Kite Fest, as well as the White Salmon, the Waterfront Music Festival, sorry, are all just rolling over from last year. I didn't make them reapply because they didn't hold their events this year, and so they had no changes. There are a couple of new events. So Walking Man is doing a different type of event rather than more or less just a beer and music event. They're going to be doing one where they host more or less like open houses at the various hotels throughout town, happy hours more also, and kind of partnering more with the hotels to have more of an event that spreads it out throughout town and is all weekend long versus just one day. And then the Pirate Festival is coming in August is what their proposal is. Again, most of this is all COVID related. And then I received an email today about a race event that used to be held in Sun River, and it's relocated to Cascade Locks for 2021. They didn't apply for any TAC funding, but they did reach out to see about coordinating. It's going to be a 3-day event. It's an endurance race. So yeah.
So I guess my quick question then, did money that was allocated December 2019 that we voted on, did it not get pushed
Didn't
out
get-
to those events? So that money's still
Correct.
sitting in the TAC account?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's reflected in the estimated rollover balance.
Which
So it's
is,
in 2021, it's the second line from the top. So it's on page 41 for you, and it would be
before 10?
310 beginning balances.
Well, shoot, I'm seeing,
Sorry, 308.
maybe I'm down a little too long.
And those monies get distributed as the expense, as the event or organization incurs expense, and then they submit the invoice, and then we reimburse them.
Gotcha.
So if the event isn't held, we haven't, there's been nothing to reimburse, so we're still hanging on to those funds. So that's why it's just like a rollover for the next year. We still have those monies.
And if you look at the chart that I have on page 40, the orange line is just what we have for event expenditures. So we've been setting money aside for capital expenses, and granted, those have drawn it down a little bit, but there's still money left in reserves. And as you can see, the events in general do not spend what we bring in for taxes, except for in 2021, again, because of how, I'm expecting us to not receive as much as we expected to, just because of the COVID impact. But the committee felt that this was the year to at least put, especially with some of the new events, to put money into it, to again, try to spur the economic development or the growth of the events.
As an aside, we talked about the interpretive center today in our EDC meeting. So
And good,
hoping-
bad, and different?
well, just every year it's a big discussion for the TAC committee.
Right.
And every year they ask for more money than we give them. And every year we say, show us your marketing plans, show us how you're going to, do more with this amazing, really, truly amazing property next year. And they just never can quite get it together. So,
Are you saying Robert's just not on top of it?
I'm definitely not pointing a finger at anyone. I'm saying it's a difficult problem. Yeah.
Well, was it the year that we held back some money until they poured the concrete for the outdoor area? Weren't they also supposed to build a pergola or something back there?
Commercial kitchen and some different things of that nature. Yeah. And with the new Dean Maldonado project going in, there's more activity happening down there, right? So there's more opportunity. So anyway, I think, maybe something will maybe something will shake loose a little bit down there and we'll be able to better utilize that property in the future.
Well, I heard there was a hell of a party there back in September last year.
I heard that too. Lots of wine.
Hey, Liana, can I get a paper copy of this document? I do better when I have something in front of me with, that I can flip pages. Can I get that tomorrow by any chance?
And that goes for anyone, like if anyone needs a council packet or anything printed out ahead of the meeting or anything, just let me know and I can have that ready for you.
I could pick it up by about 3:30. Will that work?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Could we talk about the sheriff's contract?
It will be on the next agenda.
Okay.
If it's related to the budget, yes, but I'm trying to play Ken here and keep the
That's fine.
scope of the special meeting.
Yeah.
Your focus sharp.
Yes.
But I do have a question about this sheriff's allocation, because earlier in this meeting, you said that it was increased. Last I knew it was close to 180. Has that changed?
No, it's still the same. I think it increased 0.8%. So it's
So from 175 to almost 180 then probably.
so it went from 175 to 176.9.
Yeah, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, as I recall, 4 years ago when we did this before, we approved a thing where increases to his budget would come based on the inflation rate of the regional inflation rate. So it's an automatic increase. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, guys.
That's what's in the current contract now, and we just the metric that we were using went away. They stopped using it because there's not enough people in Portland, so we had to do some analysis and change it, and so we changed that and clarified it in the new contract, and that's what it's based off of. Are there any major questions or concerns?
No, I was just going to say that I don't have any other questions, but I really do appreciate all this dialogue. And Scott, you're right. It's very, very helpful.
It's funny because I used to make fun of Nick because Nick was he a CPA or just an accountant? But his eyes used to twinkle. He would flip. He had that notebook and he would set it up like portrait style, and he would get lost in his little world. And I would hate to think that someone would make fun of me in the same way, but that is one of the biggest. I wouldn't call it necessarily a crutch, but it was. Yes, you can dive down into the minutia with all of these other line items, but to see that pie chart, and again, money in, money out. How do you balance those two numbers? And looking at those pie charts makes a huge difference. So if I get twinkly eyes when I talk about it, I apologize.
And I can see about adding an overlay chart as for operations costs, as far as the revenue that comes in and then the expenses. I'll see about trying to add that in so you can see what's happening year over year.
I do have one more question. Which is the First Street, let's see, the First Street Alternative Transportation Project construction project. That's one of our capital projects. Can you remind me what we're doing down there?
It's the Overlook project. So basically from the end of Columbia, kind of that intersection there, down to
where the new trail is.
Yeah. They're doing an overlook. They'll be relocating the guardrail and adding the sidewalk so that you can then have a complete walking path.
And that is going to align, I think, the following year with what's happening on the Columbia Street realignment, right? And all of this is fitting into the new Stevenson Downtown Transportation Plan. Is that right?
So we're having a follow-on conversation tomorrow to talk about Columbia Street and the feasibility and where it's at with regards to, I think we're leveraging some brownfields funding right now to see what we can use for that project. And then from there, we'll see what our next steps are. I do believe, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, that the property owners are still on board right now with the plan. Again, as we go more along into the feasibility stage and getting actual hard numbers, we'll keep confirming as we go along.
Yeah, so, and I'm not
Cool.
meaning to suggest that anything is set in stone.
Right, yeah.
I'm just trying to ascertain, like, that the First Street project and that overlook, like right now, it's kind of like an overlook to nothing, right? Like it's a standalone thing. It doesn't really feel connected to anything else. But what I'm trying to ascertain is the fact that I think that's part of this larger plan where all of these things are going to eventually connect. So that's like
Yes.
a phased, yeah, okay, thank you. And my last question has to do with painting the wall that was on another standalone project, which is related to the trail over by the lodge that goes to Ashes Lake. Do we have funds and do we have a timeline?
The community group that we were working with to raise the funds, they declined to help us do that. There was some support from individual members that maybe if we get the ball rolling, that group might act as a purse to hold some donations, but there hasn't been any action on that yet.
What's the cost of that, Ben? Do you know? Ish, ballpark ish.
It could range between, and these are numbers from 2013, between $6,000 and $125,000, depending on, well, the paint.
$125,000 to paint the wall?
That'd be to face it with basalt facing. The $6,000 would be just painting it.
Well, how is it possible that painting that wall is going to cost $6,000?
That's the estimate that was given to us from the engineer. I don't know.
Amy, it's a special paint that's not cheap. I mean,
Isn't it anti-graffiti as well? Like you can wipe it.
that was the idea when we looked at it back in, what, 15? Yeah, 16? So that was the cost. That was the reason why the cost. In fact, I think it's going to be even higher now.
If we don't want to wait for doing the basalt facing or something more than paint, then I think we can get it done under the lower cost. If you guys want to budget for that.
I would definitely like to budget for that, but I may be the only one out here.
Well, is it possible to get a grant for something like that? Isn't that a beautification project?
Yeah, for something like 6,000, if we go that way, it's probably not worth the effort
To write the grant, yeah.
write the grant and comply with their reporting.
So, Amy, when you talk about painting the wall, are we talking about so that it's not just a blank cement wall, or actual thought in like close to a mural, or like what did you have in your mind?
Originally, I had this could be a cool art project, and maybe the high school kids could put something together, and it could be a great mural. Or we could put it out there, and we would purchase the supplies, and we would have a design contest, and maybe a local artist would design something and paint it if we purchased the supplies. But at this point, however many years later, I'm like, just frickin' paint the thing so that it's not empty cement with weeds growing on it.
Yeah.
Like all these years later, and every year I talk about it, and every year nothing happens.
So I'm with Amy totally 100% on this. And I really like the idea of a community involved mural art project. And I wonder if the lodge would be willing to help with the expense of this. It seems
Not
like that
this
would.
year.
Yeah.
Say again?
Not this year. They won't.
You might be right about that, but it seems
And
like it'd be an asset for them.
I think they're still mad about the sewer rates too. So
Yeah.
tread lightly about asking them for money from the city.
Okay, well maybe that new project going in on Rock Cove.
Well,
Maybe.
I mean, that's what I thought, Paul, is that Maldonado might have a few dollars in there that he could throw at that for, not advertising, but he could at least,
I would like
Contribution.
to make it a goal to get that done within the next year. I think that should be the goal, is to get it done in 2021, but settle for it being done sometime in 2022. But yeah, I'm with Amy on this. I want to get this going.
And I agree. It's been something that that's been talked about every year, and there's no reason why. Okay, so I guess that the big thing is who's going to spearhead it. Where are we going to find these resources? So maybe that's the first thing, is putting something as simple as on Facebook. Do you want to help take part in the beautification of our downtown, and are you willing to help? And what will you be willing to bring to the table? So whether it's an organization or an artist or.
I wondered too, Scott, if this is something we could sell or pitch to the next RCDI cohort or the RDI cohort.
I did. I pitched that when I was in the RDI
Oh, you did?
thing.
Didn't
yeah.
make the cut.
It did not.
Okay.
Let's see. I had a thought there and I lost it now. Anyway, it'll come back to me or not.
So is it possible to put $6,000 for this project as a line item into the budget? So that we don't go another year with absolutely nothing happening?
Mhm.
And can the city apply to its own TAC fund? Or do we need to get a group to apply on our behalf
Well, we missed the window for
this time around?
applications this time around. But we can apply for our own funding.
So wasn't there at one time a public art committee? Is that just gone now, or could we recreate
I
that?
think it's still on paper.
Well, maybe
It
this
is.
sounds like the perfect project for that committee if it can be recreated.
And what about the billboard committee, the committee that's recreating the murals on the sides of buildings?
That's the SDA was spearheading that, and unfortunately that part doesn't land in the downtown.
Okay. Hmm.
But that was all community support. And then actually the last one was apparently quite a bit more complicated than the first one, because there's parts on the first one that I could say, Young Liberty took a hand in. But like Jen Smith was part of that group, and I don't know if Eli was part of it, but there was some artists that totally were all in. They took like possession of it and said, no, that oval is going to be perfect and the lettering is going to be perfect, because that particular project, it was hard to hide any imperfections. So it might, because Marie isn't with the organization anymore, we might be able to figure out who was in on that group. So yeah, there's I guess what this is all coming down to is that there's opportunity here. So for the sake of this meeting, let's start with a line item, and then we can talk more about how to utilize it.
Can we get like a straw poll of whether just painting it is good enough, or do you want something more substantial? Because that question, let's do
To
it.
get community involvement is, because it's always that for me anyway, that's the litmus test. We're thinking about this, and then find some way to say, but we want better. It can be better, and then now you've got participation.
But if it comes down to that or nothing, like I would take a coat of paint.
Agreed completely. I would
So-
rather have something special, but a coat of paint will do.
Okay, so if it comes to a coat of paint, can we keep the committee small when it comes to deciding the color?
We'll let Amy pick. She's waited so long for it.
I was just
Yay.
gonna say Scott can pick. I don't care. Any color will do.
Here's the problem though. We paint it once. It's not gonna get painted that second or third time. You know what's gonna happen.
Well, I would rather go forward than not go forward at all, just because, some paint might be peeling 4 years down the road. I don't think I would let that stop me from making the decision to paint it now.
All right, so yeah, let's cap this conversation as to yes, let's put money into that, and then we can get going on how.
Mhm.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, anything else? Oh, before I forget, Amy, Ben, if I get this wrong, the grant for the First Street project included making some beautification changes, or was it beautification or traffic calming at the foot of Columbia? And that kind of put us in a bit of a bind because we weren't exactly sure where Columbia was going to be. So it didn't make a lot of sense to put money into an intersection that was going to move. And we found a way, or they said it was all right to put that money on the other side of First Street so that we didn't have to make a commitment to some changes on the north end for an intersection that might move.
Yeah, exactly. It's a sidewalk project that connects two parts of our sidewalk system that aren't connected right now. But it's hoping to induce development on that Clifton site that's adjacent to it and the other properties involved in the Columbia realignment. But it's also a traffic calming program. So where you guys got beat up by the community in 2015 and 14 and whenever, and the solution at that time was just paint some 25 mile an hour on the street. This is a more holistic solution that reduces the shoulder areas. It brings that curb closer to traffic, which will slow traffic down in that corridor. There's a vegetated bump out further down than Columbia, but exactly what Scott said. At the Columbia intersection, we kept the landscaping enhancements light, knowing that might change as a result of the moving the road, and all the rest of the design of the sidewalk that we're doing can accommodate that change if it does happen.
Was any thought given, Ben, to cyclists? Bicyclists?
No, not really.
Okay, because I do think we're going to be seeing more cyclists with what's happening on the trail on the other side and potentially what may eventually happen on the Bridge of the Gods. So with all of the new projects that we're doing downtown, you probably want to keep in mind that we're going to have more cyclists.
Yeah, we intentionally punted on some of those because of the question about one-ways or two-ways. And so if they change to one-ways, there's quite a lot of room for bicycle lanes in consideration of cyclists. But until we really make a decision, we just didn't know what to do.
So that'll be part of the discussion when we do the transportation study? Okay, thanks.
Okay, it's straight up 7 o'clock. Are there any other major questions, or are you guys comfortable to make a to do a vote? Yeah, Ben has to leave us anyway. So are you guys comfortable with what you've learned tonight to make an educated vote next week?
Yeah, that, and along with the hard copy that I get tomorrow, I'll be in a better position.
All right. All right, well, Ben's leaving, and like I say, it's right up 7 o'clock. Thank you guys very much for your time. Oh, real quick, is everybody going to be there next week? I mean, sorry, December. Does everybody plan on being here in December?
I will not be there on December 17th.
Robert?
Plan on it.
Okay, well, we were short. We didn't have a quorum last year, and we couldn't get business done. So if you guys are going, let us know. Other than
Yeah,
that, thank you guys.
I don't know yet, Scott. I may or may not be in Mexico. Hopefully I will, but I can.
Okay, I didn't mean
I
to
can
derail
zoom
this
in.
meeting, but just a bug in your ear. If you guys think you're going to be
Yep.
gone, let Liana know right away so that we can adjust our agenda. See you, Ben.
I'll
Thanks.
have it on the agenda for a topic of discussion just so we can get more in detail into it.